Today we're diving into a chilling and eye-opening topic. Innocent faces, deadly secrets, inside MS-13's most wanted criminals, and more. In today's video, we'll be unpacking the stories of young women who appeared ordinary on the outside, but were tied to some of MS-13's most brutal and carefully planned attacks. We'll look at how gangs use manipulation, trust, and social media to lure victims, and how these cases shock communities across the United States. Before we begin, a quick reminder: this video discusses real-life violent crimes, and may be disturbing to some viewers. We're approaching this as a true crime documentary, with a focus on facts, justice, and the warning signs that can help prevent future tragedies. Number 1. Lenis Escobar, known on the streets as the Little Devil. Reporters packed the courtroom the day the young gang associate was finally found guilty. What unfolded inside that courtroom shocked the nation, not just because of the brutality of the crime, but because of who stood accused. In April of 2017, a quiet Long Island neighborhood was torn apart by a horrifying act of violence that would dominate headlines across America. 4 teenage boys were murdered in a carefully orchestrated gang ambush, one of the deadliest attacks linked to MS-13 in years. At the center of the investigation stood 17-year-old Lenis Escobar. To neighbors, she looked like an ordinary teenager growing up in New York. But investigators later uncovered a far darker reality hiding behind social media posts, coded messages, and secret communications tied to the gang. Born in Queens to Salvadoran immigrant parents, Escobar experienced a difficult upbringing marked by instability and hardship. Friends later described her as someone desperate to belong somewhere, someone who wanted acceptance no matter the cost. As she got older, that need for belonging pulled her deeper into the orbit of MS-13. Police discovered online activity showing her loyalty to the gang and connections to members operating across Long Island. Detectives later argued she was no passive observer. By the age of 17, investigators believed she had become an active participant trying to elevate her status within the organization by helping organize a violent attack that would earn respect from gang leadership. That horrifying plan unfolded on the night of April 11, 2017. Escobar and her gang-affiliated boyfriend invited a group of local boys to hang out near a wooded area in central Islip. The invitation sounded harmless. The teenagers believed they were simply meeting friends to relax and spend time together. But hidden deeper in the woods, armed gang members waited in silence carrying machetes, knives, and wooden clubs. As the boys entered the isolated area, the ambush began. In a matter of minutes, the peaceful night turned into absolute chaos. 4 teenagers lost their lives in the attack while one survivor managed to escape and later helped investigators reconstruct the terrifying sequence of events. Authorities said Escobar's role was critical. Even though she did not physically carry out the killings herself, prosecutors argued she helped lure the victims into the trap and stayed present while the violence unfolded. The investigation intensified when detectives uncovered social media messages and gang-related slang posted after the murders. Prosecutors claimed those posts celebrated the attack and strengthened the evidence tying her directly to the conspiracy. Phone records, witness statements, and digital evidence eventually painted a picture of careful planning rather than impulsive violence. When her federal trial finally began years later, prosecutors presented her not as a manipulated child but as a deliberate participant in a calculated gang operation. Her defense argued she had fallen under the influence of dangerous people and only wanted acceptance. But the jury remained unconvinced. Escobar was convicted on federal racketeering and murder conspiracy charges. Number 2. Carla Jacqueline Morales. In June of 2018, Houston police responded to a homicide scene that investigators would later describe as both deeply disturbing and painfully familiar. A young man had been killed in what authorities believed was a gang-related execution. But what shocked many people was not only the violence itself, it was the identity of the woman accused of helping orchestrate it. Carla Jacqueline Morales was 21 years old with no major public criminal history when investigators linked her to the murder of 24-year-old Jose Alonso Villanueva. According to prosecutors, Morales used friendship and trust as weapons. The victim reportedly knew her personally and had no reason to suspect danger when she contacted him to arrange a meeting on the outskirts of Houston. Authorities later argued the meeting had been planned carefully in advance. Morales allegedly lured Villanueva to an isolated area under the pretense of spending time together. But prosecutors said gang members connected to an MS-13 clique were already waiting nearby. Investigators claimed the victim had been targeted over accusations of disrespect toward the organization, allegations that in gang culture can quickly turn deadly. When Villanueva arrived, the ambush unfolded with extreme violence. Prosecutors said he was attacked with both firearms and bladed weapons before being left in a field. By the time emergency responders reached the scene, there was nothing they could do to save him. Detectives examining the crime scene uncovered evidence pointing toward organized gang involvement. Shell casings, witness statements, surveillance footage, and digital communications all became part of a growing investigation. Authorities alleged Morales was not merely present but had actively coordinated details leading up to the killing. Following the homicide, Morales disappeared. Law enforcement agencies launched a search that stretched across Texas and beyond. The FBI eventually identified her as a wanted fugitive connected to a violent gang-related murder investigation. Her image circulated widely while authorities pursued leads suggesting she may have fled to another state or possibly even outside the country. Months later, she was finally located and arrested without violence. Prosecutors presented her during trial as a willing participant who knowingly helped guide the victim into danger. The defense argued she had been manipulated by gang members and pressured into cooperating. But investigators pointed to extensive evidence suggesting deliberate involvement in the planning process. In 2020, Morales was convicted and sentenced to decades in prison. During sentencing, the court emphasized that someone does not need to physically carry out violence to bear responsibility for enabling it. Prosecutors argued the murder could not have happened the way it did without her role in arranging the meeting and gaining the victim's trust. The case deeply unsettled many observers because Morales did not fit common stereotypes associated with organized gangs. She appeared outwardly ordinary, had no heavily publicized criminal background, and blended into everyday life. Investigators later warned that this ability to remain unnoticed can make facilitators especially dangerous in criminal organizations. Today, Morales remains incarcerated in Texas. For the victim's family, the verdict provided some measure of justice, though the emotional damage left behind can never truly disappear. The case continues to be cited as an example of how criminal organizations sometimes exploit trust, relationships, and manipulation as tools for violence rather than relying solely on public intimidation.